Now I'd like to introduce your speakers for today. Rochelle Gorey, co-founder, CEO of Spring4. Morgan Spears, Chief Community Engagement Officer, Working Credit, NFP. Assad Lazaris, Chief Client and Development Officer, Purchasing Power. And Mike Wilbert, Chief Revenue Officer, Purchasing Power. Assad, you have the floor.
Well, thank you and good afternoon, everyone. Again, I'm Assad Lazarus with Purchasing Power. We're a company founded in 2001 that has exclusively focused on helping employers enhance their employee experience by enabling employee financial flexibility and wellness. So on behalf of Purchasing Power, I wanted to welcome and thank you for joining today's webinar. We are pleased to come together with you as well as our partners, Spring4 and Working Credit, to talk to you today about employee financial wellness. You know, financial wellness, as you all know, has been a very commonly used term for some time in the employee benefits space. But it seems like in recent months there has been a dramatic shift and increasing focus and investment by employers in financial wellness. And we believe the reason is simply grounded in the increasing financial pressure on employees and people in America. First, and as you can see from this page, employees are struggling to make ends meet due to the challenging macroeconomic trends that frankly are outside of their control. There's rising inflation, there is obviously higher interest rates, and it's tough to make ends meet. The level, though, of financial stress impacts these employees in a lot of ways: mental health, productivity, engagement, and definitely has some strong linkages, as you'll see later in the discussion, to DE&I. But also, a big reason for today is there are a lot of solutions out there that do offer immediate options to help people that are struggling. So today we hope to provide some context on what your employees are going through financially, and then look to provide some information on what Purchasing Power does, along with our partners, Spring4 and Working Credit, to help employees on their financial journey and support employers' efforts to attract and retain talent.
All right. So I'm Mike Wilbert, and before we start talking about the solutions, the financial wellness solutions that are out there and available, we really need to take a look and examine what is the actual problem that employees are facing today. And a lot of this is due to the macroeconomic factors that Assad mentioned. And so we'll take a look at the next slide and just show you a little bit about what we've found. And these statistics really kind of speak for themselves. 1 in 4 employees are working more jobs in previous years to make ends meet. So they may be doing their normal, their day job, and then also driving Uber or Lyft in the evenings, or, any kind of second or third job to make ends meet. That's a high number. 1 in 4 also have less than $1,000 saved for retirement. That's pretty disappointing when you look at that. And more than half the employees have decided to postpone their retirement. And only of the 3,000 plus employees that were surveyed, only 42% believe their compensation is keeping up with the rising cost of living. So that's, obviously an issue that's challenging a lot of people right now. And what is so the impact of this? What does this mean? These are numbers. They're not great, but what does it mean? It really is having a dramatic impact on employees, on them physically, emotionally, and mentally. And that's not isolated to their personal life. It affects them at work, at home, all day long. Next slide, we're going to look at these are some staggering numbers, but if you look at the total credit card debt it's currently, as of Q3, $925 billion. Staggering number, but I think, what's interesting is that's gone up $38 billion just since Q1. And again, that's the Q3 number of 925. So in the last year, the credit card balances in aggregate for the U.S. have increased by $121 billion, which is 15%. which is the largest jump in year-over-year jump in more than 20 years. So people are clearly being driven to to stop paying cash and using credit based upon these macroeconomic factors. And then you look at what that means. The APRs, the annual percentage rates people are paying, they're going up for cards that have interest. The average rate is right now it's 16.2%, and that is only increasing to currently it's 18.43%. And then for new credit cards that are just being issued, the average APR is 22.2%. So if you flip to the next slide, you'll see that the average American owes $9,000 of credit card debt, and it's just getting more and more expensive to service that. And those are really telling signs of what the economic factors are doing to people.
Yeah, Mike. Wow, that's a lot of credit card debt, especially for, let's say, low or average wage earners in America, right? And now look, while it is important to minimize bad debt, the reality is that it is a necessity. People need access to credit or debt just to get by. Whether it is to deal with their immediate day-to-day needs, unforeseen circumstances, or even emergencies. But the cost and access to that debt isn't the same for everyone. In fact, it isn't affordable for a large portion of the U.S. population, and therein lies a big part of the challenge for a lot of working Americans. If you take a look at the next slide, you'll see a snapshot of the current state of access to credit in America. And here's what it says, right? In summary, 42% of the adult population can't get credit at mainstream interest rates, whereby debt is extremely expensive for them as compared to someone who has good credit. 57 million have scores that classify them as subprime. What does that mean? Well, most lenders wouldn't lend to them, at least not at the same interest rates as prime borrowers. So it's these populations labeled as subprime, unscorable, or invisibles that are the most concerning, and it is a large population. They have some of the biggest hurdles when it comes to finding the immediate and affordable means of paying for life surprises or emergency expenses. So our partners at Working Credit will speak to some of the impact of this a little bit later in the presentation, but clearly a significant impact, and there's a large population that are hit hardest by this credit problem in America that impacts financial health and well-being. If you go to the next page, it's interesting when we take some of this data and break it down to the DE&I aspect, we start to see some really interesting trends, right? Black Americans are close to 2 times more likely to be credit invisible or unscorable, and also less likely to have access to prime interest rates. So these things have compounding effects when you think about the current macroeconomic factors that we've talked about with mounting debt and inflation. And so the perception that wages aren't keeping up in light of that is a real consideration for workers in America.
So, again, if you take a look at these statistics here, this graph is very telling. It's very sobering. Unfortunately, it's not surprising, but you see that the people that are, the way to read this slide is the blue are people that are currently unable to pay their current month's bills. The gray are the additional people that after a $400 emergency would then be unable to pay their current month's bills. And as we see here, people of color are disproportionately impacted, in the overall macroeconomic environment, really in all of the different wage categories. So clearly there's a problem, and clearly it's concentrated more for certain groups than others. And what's the emotional toll of financial stress? We were very intrigued and really wanted to understand this more. And so what we did is in 2021 we started a Harris poll where we were asking questions of employees to find out just what kind of toll financial stress is having on them emotionally, both from a personal aspect and from a an aspect of work and productivity. And there's some pretty interesting findings we're going to share with you here. And if you take a look at the next slide, what you'll see is financial stress affects 97% of the employees we surveyed reported they have financial stress that impacts either their physical health, ability to focus at work, which also turns into productivity at work, and results in lower job satisfaction. So those are all intertwined and not surprising, but very pervasive. Over on the right, you see 39% of the employees we surveyed spend 3 to 6 hours a week worrying about their personal finances. A lot of that time is when they're at work, and that's distracting and leads to lower productivity and lower engagement. Interesting, 72% believe that employers have a responsibility to help with their financial well-being. I don't know the number from 10 years ago, 15 years ago, but it has to be significantly higher. And right or wrong, employees do expect their employers to step in and help solve this problem. What we also asked, the annual State of Employee Finance Survey, what are you worried about today? These are things that you wouldn't be surprised by, but 54% of employees have $2,000 or less, or no money in their emergency savings account. So what does that mean? It's financial fragility. The line for employees, there's no margin for error for a lot of these employees. And so that was very telling, but it also helps you understand all of these other statistics or all of these other concerns that they have and that they experience on a daily basis. On the next slide, the takeaway here is employees surveyed said they would be more willing to stay with their present employer if they offered more financial well-being benefits. So again, the employees are looking to the employers to help provide resources and options for their financial wellness. They're also using it as a gauge to monitor how much their employer cares about their financial well-being. Again, the 79% of the employees said they were more likely to stay with their employer. And what we found is only 20% of HR professionals said that they had increased their financial wellness offerings over the last year. So potential opportunity to close that gap, which I think is the key takeaway here.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Again, very interesting and I think telling information and stats that I think are truly hard to ignore. So we talked so far about the impact on employees and how they feel about their situation. But for you, how does that how does all of this impact employers? What are the ramifications of not addressing financial wellness? And what role does financial stress really play with some of the most important priorities that human resources teams and professionals are focused on today? If you go to the next slide, let's look at DE&I and mental health. And this is a little bit of a busy slide, but both DE&I and mental health have become an important focus area of investment for companies in the value they bring to their employees. And it's hard to not associate financial stress directly to the challenges around mental health and some of the opportunities with DE&I. You can see from some of the stats at the top of the page, 40% of women can't afford a surprise expense. Again, we've talked about some of the challenges with Black Americans here who have a credit score of less than 620. That's around 20% of Black Americans. Households that have at least one person with a disability are less likely to have an emergency savings. So, and then at the bottom here with regard to mental health, Mike mentioned some of this earlier, but financial stress is higher than it's been in 7 years and is likely leading to some broader concerns, not just for the employee, but it does create physical issues and costs and productivity concerns with your workforce. And so these are some big challenges that you cannot ignore as you look at how financial stress really impacts some of the priorities for human resource professionals.
Yeah, Saad, and if you look at the toll that this stress is taking on employers, financially stressed employees are twice as likely to look elsewhere. So from the graph, it's pretty telling and not surprising. 38% who are stressed about finances are looking for a new job versus only 16% who are not stressed. And then, conversely, employees who are looking for a new job would be attracted to another company that cares more about their financial being, 76% to 57%. Not surprising. And then if we look at the next slide, we'll see financial stress does have a dramatic impact on productivity, retention, attendance, and engagement. And these stats are, all reinforce those four areas, and just how much people who are stressed are going to be less likely to stay and be engaged and be productive. So again, very good data, but just underscores these points very dramatically. So we get to what's making an impact. We will talk about, we basically come to if you jump to the next slide, we've basically come to a point where we've got mental health, financial stress, diversity, equity, inclusion, all leading towards, and being impacted by financial wellness. And, what we've started looking at is financial health. And the reason we call it financial health is, we really feel like you've got the three main pieces of the pie being the, physical wellness, mental wellness, and financial wellness. And they're all connected. And I'll turn it over to Asad so he can talk to you about what's working.
Yep, thanks. And so as we think about the full spectrum of wellness benefits that have financial implications for employees, many employers have traditionally focused their attention on the left side of this page, specifically health and wealth, concentrating on medical, 401k, retirement planning, life insurance, and the like. More recently, or over the past decade, we've seen growing interest for security to be a part of financial wellness offerings, where employers are helping employees with legal and long-term care coverage, as well as identity theft. So the emphasis has predominantly been on financial protection and wealth. And while these are essential benefits, the opportunity based on a lot of the data we have talked about so far and broader macroeconomic trends and financial stress is benefits that address, I think, the right side of this page, specifically how to support employees by helping them to address their immediate and short-term needs. That creates, I think, the most benefit for employees in a tough position who can't necessarily participate in their 401k or can't necessarily afford the things or even need items around security. It's addressing the needs of today. How do I make it to next week, right? So it's important, and summarily, I think, to be an employer of choice, employers must focus on the entire spectrum to address the diverse needs of their employee base who may be at different points of their journey. Next page. Yeah, so, how can you help further your employees with their financial situation? It's to provide tools and support that create financial empowerment and flexibility. That includes exploring options to help individuals with finding ways to make their money do more so that they're able to pay bills on time, have an emergency fund, and perhaps even have responsible options or alternatives for them to enjoy life, right? That's what folks are looking for in terms of their financial flexibility and empowerment.
So if we look at the utilization of financial wellness programs that employers provide, the good news is if you provide it, they will come and use it. You see back in 2001, 51% of employees leveraged the plans that were offered. In 2021, that went up to 88%. So that's a good sign. You obviously don't want to put programs in place that are going to be ignored, and we see great utilization here. If we look at the next slide, we will see what financial wellness benefits are top of mind from our survey. And 27% of the respondents said bill payment programs. And then 28% said employee purchase programs would be beneficial. There was also additional interest in financial counseling, low interest loans, medical deductible financing, identity theft, and a couple others. But we thought that was an interesting outcome of the survey. And and on the last slide, just kind of giving you a quick idea of who Purchasing Power is and what we do. We're essentially a program that allows employees to purchase the products that they need and pay for them through the convenience and discipline of payroll deduction over 12 months. We've been doing this for over 21 years, and what's probably the most significant development in our history of the program is the financial wellness offerings that we are now providing through our partners, Working Credit and Spring 4, who are also here to join us and talk to you guys today. So really excited about this. As a comprehensive offering now with our core program and these additional financial health and live counseling resources. So we'll let them take it away. And the final thing I'll say here is from our customers, we do survey our customers. And what we found from our value as a benefits survey that 96% of the customers find our program valuable versus other options. And then 82% said that we do help reduce their financial stress. 3 out of 4 say they're less likely to borrow from their 401k or retirement program. And 64% are more likely to stay with our company due to the fact that they offer purchasing power. So thought you guys might find that interesting. And thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rochelle Gorey. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Spring 4. I'm really happy to be on this webinar today, and I thought the information presented by Purchasing Power was excellent and really aligns with so much of the work that we're doing and what we're seeing in the industry. So I want to share a little bit more about our company. If you can go to the next slide. We recently joined in partnership with Purchasing Power to make certain that more and more employees have access to vetted and curated financial resources. So a bit more about our company. We founded our company all the way back in 2005. And really, when you think about it during that time, there really wasn't this notion of financial health or fintechs, but we are a certified B fintech company headquartered in Chicago. And since day one, we have been about how do we help connect people in times of financial hardship to vetted and curated financial health resources that we know exist. And we want to help connect people to nonprofit and government agencies that are providing resources right in their own community. And the reason that we're doing this is because at Spring 4, we believe that when people are experiencing financial difficulties, it's because something's going on in their lives that makes it impossible for them to pay. So we want to make certain to connect them to the helpers in their community that are providing resources in a wide variety of areas. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But since founding our company in 2005, we've really grown as a company, and we've really seen the adoption of financial health tools, financial wellness tools, products, and this whole niche industry of financial wellness. And it's very exciting because, as we know, the last several years have been very hard for almost every consumer with the pandemic and now the looming recession, inflation. We want to help destigmatize when people have financial, excuse me, hardships, and help get them back on track. Excuse me, I've had a horrible cough and I'm trying to get through this. If you can go to the next slide, please. So how we do this, we have a variety of tools.
Rochelle, this is Mike. Do you want me to jump in here?
Yeah, I am so sorry. We have a variety of tools. We have a contact center solution, which can be utilized if you think about it, if you're doing any employee.
Hey, this is Mike Wilbert. I can jump in here. I'm sorry. I know you're getting over that cold, Rochelle. The Spring Forward suite of products, basically they have 20,000 vetted nonprofit resources in 30 different financial health categories, covered in 625 cities across the U.S. And all have been independently vetted by the Spring Forward team. They offer English and Spanish, and they can deploy their platform in under 30 days.
Yeah, and I'll tag team this with you a little bit, Mike. I think the important thing on that page too is it's critical to really emphasize the fact that those vetted resources are really with nonprofit and governmental agencies. So it's really unbiased support where the intent is not necessarily to monetize on the consumer, but to provide real support without any, again, and bias from a provider standpoint.
Thank you so much. And let's just talk a little bit about what those resources are. So we're really helping direct people to anything that they have household expenses around. So we're helping connect them to heating and utility assistance, help finding reductions in groceries and food savings, help with medical care costs, accessing reduced prescription cost assistance. And like Assad and Mike said, all of these resources are available through nonprofit or government agencies. And then in addition, our team authors financial health guides. So if you have employees that need a little bit more information, or what we've seen since the pandemic is that for the first time, people are experiencing extreme financial hardship and they're not really accustomed to knowing about resources that are out there or how to go about finding assistance. So we're really trying to destigmatize that and normalize that with these guides. And so as employers, you can offer these guides to your employees to help them understand how to look for assistance and more tips around doing so. And we've seen just a lot of reactions to our financial health guides, a lot of downloads. People certainly welcome having this information. Next slide, please. So really what Spring 4 is doing is we're really helping employees to reduce their expenses and really, if they're behind on their bills, increase their repayment rates, because as we help reduce household expenses, we're creating greater cash flow, which allows people to catch up on any past due bills, and employers and all of the organizations that we're working with see greater customer engagement. And then certainly employees are feeling very satisfied knowing that their employers are assisting them and helping them And it really adds a lot to your brand value. Just like Mike and Assad presented, employees are wanting this information. They feel good about it when their employer presents that information to them. Certainly it helps increase their productivity and makes them feel better about where they're working. And so we're, through providing these resources, able to directly impact people's overall financial health, encourage and enable a greater financial success, and overall help reduce their household expenses, which, for the large majority of Americans, everybody is looking for that today. And why this is so important is I think COVID and the pandemic really exposed that nearly every person is a day away from a financial emergency. The previous slides by Purchasing Power showed that, for the vast majority of Americans, we don't have a large emergency savings stockpiled. So when things happen, and unexpected things happen all the time, people really do need support and assistance in helping meet their household expenses. Next slide. The other interesting and great thing that we're doing when we work with employers and organizations like Purchasing Power is that we're helping further organizations' social impact and stewardship goals. So by providing Spring4's vetted financial health resources, we can help meet ESG goals and help demonstrate very easily and quickly your impact. So we provide all of our clients with reporting that shows the number of referrals that are made through the Spring4 platform, what those categories of need are, and this also can help inform what your employees are facing. What are the things that are driving their financial hardships? Next slide. So just a little bit more about how we're doing this. As I mentioned, we have, or as Mike mentioned, thank you, we have a couple of tools. So we have our professional tool, which is used in a collections or call center environment. It can also be used by employee coaches, financial coaches, or any sort of EAP type program that you may have. And it's a simple, easy tool to use. It's cloud-based, and the user just puts in the zip code and is able to search for referrals right in that person's community, and can find referrals directly to those nonprofit and government agencies. So it's very simple to use, and people who do use it report that they're able to provide better customer service to either their customers or their employees. And then the next slide, the digital offering is really probably the best solution for helping your employees see better financial health, because this is a way that your employees can access through a web-based search on their own, self-service. So nobody needs to know what their hardship is or what issues that they're facing. They can directly put in their zip code, search for resources available in their neighborhood, and find those resources quickly and easily through the comfort of, whether it's in their own home or during work hours, but puts them right in touch with nonprofits, government resources that can help reduce their overall household expenses. And we work with our clients to co-brand that so that the employer, Purchasing Power, gets the benefit of sharing that it is their organization that is making those referrals. And then I just want to leave you with why this matters. So we as a company often talk about referrals, but the thing about a referral is, and it's very important to remember, that behind every referral is an employee or a person or a household that is experiencing financial hardship. So this year we're on pace to make over 4 million referrals, and we're really proud of the fact that we are helping people recover and address their financial hardships. And you'll see a very powerful example here on the screen. But essentially, people are in need, and typically what we find is that people don't just go in and look for one referral, that financial health and financial hardships are complicated, and that people often need multiple referral sources to help address a variety of ongoing issues that they're experiencing. And we hear all the time that people are very appreciative and very much trust the resources that are provided in Spring 4. And it's very important to also recognize that our team is independently researching and vetting any organization that goes into our database, into our platform, to make certain that if you're using Spring 4 and your employees are gaining or accessing referrals through Spring 4, that they are up to date, they're accurate. This is an organization that is able to provide services. We take that very seriously. We want to make certain that if you're using Spring 4 to help your employees, that there are no dead ends, that when they receive a referral, it will be to an organization that can assist them. Next slide. So yes, as I was saying, we update our resources regularly. We have a professional data team that does that very consistently, and that all of the organizations listed in Spring 4, we are independently vetting and curating them. We never earn any revenue from any organization that's listed in our database. And we listen to feedback. So if employees or organizations that use our tool want to share with us feedback about that organization, we take that feedback very seriously, and we'll update any information that comes in through our feedback loop. And we also continually add new resources as we watch market trends. So we're looking at different categories and adding new resources as they become available. Last year, when the government provided additional mortgage hardship assistance through state housing assistance funds, our team was updating and adding a new category so that consumers could get access to that information. So just know that every day our team is on it, working to make certain that all of the resources within Spring 4 are accurate and up to date. Next slide, please. You can see on here, we work with some very large brands. We're very trusted within the industry to provide financial health resources, and we're very excited about working with Purchasing Power and making certain that employees have access to the very best financial health resources, and really working to take the stigma associated with reaching out for help, removing that and saying that, you know, making it easy and accessible for people to receive financial health resources is a great move. It's positive for employers, it's positive for employees, and we hear from many employees that they're very happy and thrilled to receive this information. Thank you so much. And I apologize for my rough delivery today. I'm working through a bad cough. Thank you.
Alrighty, so with the interest of time and also to ensure we have the opportunity to hear your questions and be able to respond, I'm going to try to get through this quickly. But I do want to first start off by thanking Purchasing Power, HR Executive Magazine for allowing us to have this platform. And to just quickly, just to reintroduce myself, my name is Morgan Spears. I am the Chief Community Engagement Officer with Working Credit. And moving forward to the next slide, for those who are not as familiar with Working Credit, we are headquartered and based out of Chicago, but we are a national nonprofit organization pretty much anchored and rooted. In fact, our initial initiative was operating solely and strictly as an employee benefit. But since then, we have grown over the years. And we today partner with individuals, communities, as well as employers still to interrupt structural racism by providing credit building education, one-on-one credit building counseling, and truly giving people access to products that they need that is affordable as well as accessible. So moving forward, when the reason why we root our work in credit. So Assad and Mike earlier in the presentation talked a lot about financial wellness. We at Working Credit, we believe in, from our data, we know that credit is the foundation to financial health, right? There's so much emphasis that talks about savings and talk about income, and all of this is true. But the reality is that credit intersects in so many different areas of our financial life, right? And so often we hear about the big ticket purchasing items like buying a home or buying a car. But the reality is that when you just want to finance a cell phone, and cell phones are going for the amount of people's rent these days, you need to have a good credit score in order to be able to finance without having to pay down a significant deposit. When it comes to utilities, oftentimes a lot of utility companies require deposits, and how they issue how much or how little that deposit is dependent upon your credit score. And even when we think outside of home ownership, when it comes to housing opportunity, rental properties, the majority of landlords pull people credit as a part of their tenant screening process. And just to give you one quick example of how credit impacts people's financial health, when we think about car insurance premiums, now granted, there are 3 states in this country that where credit is not able to be a part of the screen for determining somebody's car insurance premium rate. But in the state of Mississippi, notably, research and studies have shown that somebody with an excellent credit score but have a DUI on their driving record is paying less in their car insurance premium than someone with a poor or lower credit score but has an excellent driving history. So that within itself just underscores how significant credit impacts people's ability to be able to navigate the financial system. And you can go forward to the next slide where we really get into terms of the reality. And that reality is that credit for some people can either be a barrier or it could be a key that can unlock so many doors, opportunities, and access. And when we think about employees and employers specifically, even for some employers who, if you are looking for a job in like the finance field or industry, some of you as employers are maybe running credit checks to determine whether or not this candidate makes sense for your company depending upon a different field or application pool. And when we think about housing, that's a really big way where credit within itself can really determine whether or not somebody's facing an obstacle or whether or not they have a gateway or a step that they can take to navigate their finances. And now moving forward to the next slide on the cost. My grandfather has this quote where he oftentimes says, it's expensive to be poor. It's expensive to have a low credit score. People with lower credit scores are in fact paying more in their expenses. There's a term that a lot of my colleagues that we really talk about is what we call expense inequality. That is where when it comes to the cost of something, a certain good, like let's say, for example, buying a car, the car out the door costs $10,000, right? But someone with a 580 credit score is ultimately going to pay all over $6,000 more for this in order to finance that vehicle. Someone with a 670 is going to be able to save $6,000 and only pay $1,000 in order in interest to finance that vehicle. And even when we think outside of the 5-year term and just put it on a monthly basis in terms of your cash flow for your employees, that equates to over $100 more. There's so much traction in this space when we talk about financial wellness and employee benefits, where we really drive home for some employees where it's like, hey, I need a raise. I need you to increase my pay. I need to make more money to cover my ends and make ends meet. But what we're missing is that credit and how much people are having to pay for their expenses. If we're able to leverage credit and improve people's credit scores, we can be saving them so much money back into their pockets. And I know with gas and groceries being the way they are now currently, that $100 can go towards a ton of different areas in their routine budget. And next slide, please. And not only does, depending on your credit score, do you have, it's a tangible cost to that, but also it's a cost not having access to credit during emergencies, right? And specifically talking about credit cards. And Rochelle really brought this home when she was talking about, most Americans do not have access or the ability to pay for a $500 expense, right? Or don't even have like the inner circles to ask a friend or a family member for that $500. And if you do not have that money in savings, which most people do not, credit cards are oftentimes the next best option for a lot of individuals, because other than that, people are having to go to payday lenders where we have seen where they have abundant fees and interest rates that even further extracts their income from a lot of these employees. So even if they're not able to pay off, let's say, that credit card in 6 months, they only have to pay a $20 in interest rather than paying a payday lender almost triple time the amount in which they took out. And moving forward to the next slide. All of this encompassing when we talk about the cost of credit, there's actually a financial cost, but there's an emotional, physical, and mental cost as well in terms of the financial wellness that Assad and Mike brought out earlier. And to borrow from Dr. Jackie Scott, which is a brilliant professor, she coins the term called meta-oppression. Meta-oppression is, simply put, the oppression of being oppressed. And similar to how anxiety can trigger clinical depression, we understand that especially when we talk about Black and brown folks, when we talk about people of low income communities and employees who are already feeling like they have to rob Peter to pay Paul, when you put them in a situation where they don't feel that they have the holistic financial well-being support that they need to thrive, it oftentimes leading to a lot of people having internalized oppression where they feel like, okay, hey, I don't feel like I'm being valued. I feel like, I'm working for what? Oftentimes it's something that we hear from a lot of employees is that, hey, I'm going to work every day, but I'm not seeing the return on this. Where people don't feel motivated, they don't feel buy-in, they don't feel as they are being invested. And you can move forward to the next slide. And when we address this, we are then able to really be able to target the legacy and the intersection of credit in how that operates in terms of system of structural racism. Now, to be very clear, credit scoring models such as FICO, VentureScore, in their algorithm, they do not take into account race. However, at Working Credit, we understand that the finance system and the credit system itself has been built and rooted and actually has thrived off of structural racism. And I'm not going to repeat some of these statistics because they were already talked about in previous presentations, but the point here is to understand that for a lot of employers who have these DEI initiatives, it's very important that when offering a financial well-being program, that it has this lens in place, recognizing that everyone is coming at their financial situation from different lenses. And one example I'll just give is that a raise to one person and the same raise that you get to another person, although it may be equal, it may not be equitable. And what I mean by that is that for someone who does not have access to or the education, tools, and support to be able to navigate the credit system, someone who already has a credit card with a $10,000 limit on there and they're only utilizing less than 10%, and someone without a credit card has the same amount of cash flow but a lower credit score, their ability to navigate their finances is going to be severely different, right? So we want to make sure that whatever holistic support that we give, that is operating from this reality and that is able to be responsive to that. And you can move forward to the next slide. And one thing I want to note in understanding that context is that there are so many other factors out here that a lot of individuals and households are facing. And from having to go to a payday lender, we have rent-to-own agencies and places that are offering these immediate needs, but at an exorbitantly high cost that is attracting a lot of the income from your employees. And one notable agency and practices is credit repair agencies. There are a ton of different, financial, security initiatives and agencies out there to say, hey, I can help you build your credit. I can help you improve your credit score. And you as an employer is like, hey, it's all these resources out here. But the reality is that these come at exorbitantly high cost to the employee. So oftentimes credit repair agencies, they give false promises. They have illegal practices where they're disputing things and, using fraudulent measures and methods. They're charging people $500 a month, monthly payments to remove things that honestly every consumer can dispute something on their credit report for free, go to a nonprofit or one of Spring Forward's agencies to help them navigate those issues or questions they have about their finances. And the reality is that removing things off your credit report does not help that individual build credit. So it's really important that you're partnering with an organization that's really rooted in helping people not only to address things that are incorrect or inaccurate on their credit report, but ultimately help them build their credit. And you can move forward to the next slide, and I will be wrapping up shortly. And how we do that, as I mentioned from my earlier slide, is that we see ourselves as interrupters to structural racism. People say that education is power, right? Like, oh, if you have education, you can do anything. And I would say that that's partially true. Education plus access plus opportunities in the tools and having the resources to implement the knowledge that you do have and learn is power. And it is from that, plus the support from having somebody be able to take you through the process, is how you're able to truly interrupt and really be able to support your employees, right? So it's not just giving somebody a pamphlet or a list of resources. It's about how do we pair that strategically with the guidance and personalized support that people are able then to thrive. And moving forward to the next slide here. And you can fast forward from this slide too. Well, how we do that through our program, we have a 2-part program where we offer a 45-minute live workshop that really talks about the credit system, where it talks about the rules of how you can tangibly build your credit. And then from there, we get people into one-on-one credit building counseling. And it is unlimited counseling up to a year, right? You know, they have access to a specific counselor, credit building expert to walk them through whatever their individual journey is in terms of credit building. So that first initial counseling session is a 60-minute session where we review their personal goals. We are not prescriptive. We're not telling everybody needs to buy a house because that's not everybody's goal, right? It's not meant for everybody. But whatever that individual personal goal is, we'll create a credit action plan that's personalized and tailored to them, talk about their budget, talk about ways we'll pull their credit report, review it with them, and go over how they can actually tangibly build their credit to meet their goals. And moving forward, and you can fast forward through this too. What this intangibly does, and I'll keep this very simple here, is that it makes an exceptional and exponential impact on that individual in terms of their financial well-being. For a person with a 580 credit score, their total expenses in their income, right? So if the income is the same, if we can really just focus on people's expenses here, you can see that someone who just improves their credit score, who's making the same amount of annual gross income, has a significantly different cash flow, how their finances is managing, and it's simply because they were able to leverage a higher credit score to be able to get them to where they need to be, right? So if you have more money in your pocket on a monthly basis, that can change your whole trajectory, having you feel more stable, feeling like you're feeling valued in your workplace, that you're not just working yourself just to rob Peter to pay Paul. You feel invested in, you feel informed, and you feel like you're able to leverage that knowledge for your success. And then just to finally wrap this up with my final slide here, is that what we know is that our outcomes are significant. So within that year, over 70% of employees increase their credit scores. And not just simply increase their credit scores, a significantly amount of that population are able to go to a prime credit score, right? And what I mean by prime is they have above a 660 credit score on a FICO score. And what that means is lower interest rates. That means access to housing. That means the opportunity to purchase home. We're talking about generational wealth. And what that equates tangibly in dollars is a raise in their pay. And exponentially, year after year, it gives them further access, and not just in terms of financial costs, but the ability to interrupt some of that meta oppression, where they no longer have that sense of, okay, hey, maybe it's me. I'm not able to manage my finances. No, you are able to manage your finances. You just have to know how to how the system is worked and how to leverage it for your success. And so I say all of that to say is that by leveraging credit, people are able to not only just build power, but be able to build generational wealth, be able to build hope, and most importantly, be able to feel as though that the place that they are working in truly invests in them. And as an employer, that's a one-time investment that goes throughout the life of your employee. And I'll just wrap that up there. And thank you all so much for the opportunity to present.
Yeah, no, I want to say thank you to Rochelle and thank you to Morgan as well for their comprehensive insights and background on what they have to offer. You know, the intent of today, again, was to walk through the real concerns for so much of your workforce and what they're facing today, which, again, what we highlighted, I hope, is a lot of the concern is immediate. Folks really trying to address immediate access or improving their financial position with credit or with resources. And so in Purchasing Power, we are proud that we have a comprehensive solution around all that. But, you know, happy to take some questions here and get anyone's thoughts or feedback and questions that we can answer.
Okay, we had a question. Is Purchasing Power an employee discount program? Hi, Mike, you're muted.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I'll take that one. So Purchasing Power is not an employee discount program. We do complement discount programs quite well, but those are designed for employees who can pay cash or have access to good credit, whereas our program is geared for people who do not have the cash to pay. And, you know, and as a result, our pricing on our products is higher than the retail price. So still a lot better than what other options they may have, but it's very complementary for a discount program, but not the same.
Okay, next question. How much does Purchasing Power cost to implement?
There's no cost to implement. There's no cost to the employer. So nothing from an employer out of pocket.
Yeah. How long does it take to implement the Purchasing Power program?
Generally, it takes about 6 weeks. It's a very light lift. It's really not a full integration. It's a file transfer. There's 3 files that are transferred, and that 6 weeks time is really about one to 2 meetings a week for 30 minutes, and a lot of it's just testing. So very easy to launch.
All right. I believe that's all the questions we have for today. I want to thank everybody for attending today's webinar. This